What would you do if you were asked to release 1,800 criminals into your community? 1,800 people who include amongst their ranks paedophiles, child molesters, murderers, and rapists. Would you be willing to set them loose on the very same streets that you and your family walk down? You probably wouldn't be too happy, would you? I know I wouldn't. But this is exactly what's happened to Sheriff Don Barnes of Orange County, California, who has been ordered by a judge to release 1,800 inmates onto the streets. We're going to be looking at this today. We're going to be examining why he's been ordered to do that and Sheriff Barnes' reaction. Now, I'll give you a clue as to that reaction. He is nothing short of an American hero. You're watching Political. Huge thank you to all of our listeners and our subscribers. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like the video and drop a comment down below. Tell us what you think of this. Tell us what you would do if you were asked to set these people loose in your community. And with no further ado, Ryan. In fact, Ryan, before you go into the article, what would you do?
What would I do if the criminals were released? Or
If you were asked to release the
if I was
criminals?
asked to release them, sorry, yeah. Well, I wouldn't release them because how could you live? How could you weigh that on your conscience? No, 1,800 potentially violent criminal. Well, no, they are violent criminals.
Mhm.
Released onto the streets. Who knows what sorts of things would go on? It certainly wouldn't be isolated to one or two incidents, would it? It would be loads and loads of incidents, and then you've got to kind of weigh that on your conscience. All the families that are affected by that, people killed, raped. A lot of them are child molesters. I mean, incredible that the judge has ordered. But we're going to get into that now. Just before we do, just a little quick shout out to our friends Freedom First Press. This is our website there. They've been sort of helping us out a little bit and publishing some of our videos and stuff on the site, and so we just sort of in turn like to give them a bit of a shout out and direct a bit of traffic their way as well. It's a good site. They've got a lot of different stuff from lots of different contributors, people like us, and it's a cool place where a lot of people can kind of have a little center point for all these different conservative viewpoints and news. And we're going to be doing some collaborations and stuff with them in the future. So check it out. We'll leave a link in the description as always. But I'm going to move on to this now from Fox News. They did an interview with the sheriff, and I thought he made some really good points. I want to read out the whole article here. So, Orange County, California Sheriff Don Barnes pushed back against an absurd order from the local Superior Court judge ordering the release of 1,800 inmates, including some who were locked up for murder and child molestation due to the coronavirus. I have no intention of doing that, of releasing those individuals back into the community. I think they pose a serious threat, Barnes told Fox and Friends. The decision by the court was made in response to an April lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union in an effort to protect disabled and medically vulnerable people at the Orange County Jail, reports said. But Barnes plans to appeal. We've released 1,400 inmates to date since March for low-level offenders. The only men that's remaining now are serious offenders. Of the medically vulnerable, 90 of them are in custody for murder or attempted murder, 94 for child molestation. In the order, Judge Wilson wrote that Barnes' deliberate indifference to the substantial risk of serious harm from COVID-19 infection to medically vulnerable people in his custody violates their rights. Everybody in the community is at risk of COVID right now, Barnes said in response to the judge, adding, not considering the risk to the public they present by being released back into the community. I think it is not only absurd, I think it places the community at significant risk. The sheriff also pushed back against the judge's claims that the jail was not testing for the coronavirus. He got a lot of his facts incorrect. We have been testing inmates. We're so far ahead of the curve when it came to best practices within our jails. We mitigated our COVID crisis from 220 in March to 0 as of last Monday. So on the face of it, it just seems incredible that any judge anywhere could order 1,800 inmates, and these aren't low-level offenders. These are high-level offenders, many of them violent crime and this kind of thing. How could you say that these people should be released back out, into the community?
No, I mean, this is what happens when you get far too many humanities graduates going into the top jobs. And I say that as a humanities graduate myself, by the way, so I'm allowed to say that. But listen, I kind of get the theory, okay? You know, jail is a scary place in a pandemic, and those people who are imprisoned, they're often forgotten about. And if you watch someone like Larry Lawton, who's a great channel, he was locked up for life in prison. He actually speaks about this. He speaks about how it feels to be in prison during a pandemic and that sort of thing. But you have to remember, those people are in there for a reason. Okay, they have to stay in there, and the sheriff was talking about he's released 1,400 people already, like for low level crimes. They don't necessarily need to be in there, but the remainder are people who cannot be let into society. You don't want your children walking down the street with these people on the loose, do you? Every precaution needs to be taken in the jail. And they're saying they're testing all the inmates. They've got the cases down from 220 in March to zero now. So they're releasing these people because of the danger of the coronavirus, but there is no danger because they have zero instances of it. The jails aren't packed anymore, and they're taking precautions. What a brave man Sheriff John Barnes is. He should be given awards because it's very, very hard to dispute ideas like that, to dispute authority like that, even when they're clearly in the wrong.
Yeah, certainly. I just want to add as well, since this article is a couple of days old when he did this interview. Since then, there has been some increase in cases again because the inmates obviously interact with the general public. Some of them sort of go in and out of prison while they go to their court cases and court hearings and this kind of thing. But the point is, they have a testing program, right? They have a testing program. They're testing all of their inmates. So in many ways, you might even say that they're less likely to catch COVID inside the prison than they are outside of the prison, simply because it is that contained environment where they can very easily keep track of who is, interacting with other inmates. And if someone tests positive, they say, oh, well, they share a cell with this person, blah, 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 and all this kind of thing. And I'm sure they've got precautions in place to reduce interactivity between the inmates as well. So, but I've always, we've talked on some of our channel, some of our live streams and stuff like that. We were talking about drug legalization and things like this. And I've always said, I think certainly there are a lot of people that probably shouldn't be in jail, right? But the one thing that is absolute paramount is that if someone poses a public safety risk, they can potentially go out and harm innocent people, or are likely to go and harm innocent people. Then it is the duty of the prisons, of the courts, of the justice system to protect the general public from those people once they have been found guilty of a crime. And I don't see how coronavirus and the risk that they might have of catching it in the jail, when they still have a risk of catching it out in the general public anyway, somehow what means that you can forget about that risk? No, it's ludicrous. They've already released the low-level offenders. These people are in jail. They're in there for a reason. They need to stay in there. I don't see how anyone could think otherwise. It just reeks of the Democrats, or in this case, probably a Democrat appointed judge in California, trying to take advantage of the pandemic to push about their political agenda, as they have been doing by shutting down businesses and doing all this other stuff that they've been trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a far left idea, isn't it? And the reason why is because the far left conceives the justice system as purely rehabilitation. They think people go into prison in order to learn how not to be in prison, okay? But they always forget that these people and the reason that these people are in prison is for a reason. It's because they're a danger to society. And it's a sort of begs the question, why does the far left always seem to get into bed with criminals and dangers to society? Because all throughout 2020, this is just a logical conclusion to what they're doing, right? All throughout 2020, they have swung their full support behind rioters, looters, arsonists, and criminals, right? But why do they have to do that? I mean, Is it so bizarre that you can believe in, I don't know, socialism, but also believe in law and order? I mean, what predisposes them to just absolutely want to endanger all of us law-abiding people? I'll never understand leftists, yeah. Never understand them.
I think the sad reality is that in a world of identity politics and as we've often talked about before, the left perhaps see race more than people on the right do because they seem to be so obsessed about it. When they look at impoverished people or people in minority groups, and often that is going to be, criminals. They think that they have to pander to those people to keep the votes that they're getting from people in those communities, and that's ultimately, I think, what it boils down to. No concern for anything other than maintaining power. So anyway, I think we'll finish up on that. This whole pandemic, I think, has just really highlighted all of the motives and issues, hasn't it, with the different political parties across basically the whole globe, really. And it's shown who the weak leaders are and who are the people who don't actually have any interest or care about their communities or their countries and the livelihood of their people. So I'm sure we're going to have plenty more stories to come in the future. So if you did on the pandemic, so if you did indeed enjoy this content, then please do consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.